Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Can you hear me well? Thank you. Dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to start expressing my heartfelt thanks for MCC for organizing this event. I also thank all of you for being here and those who are also tuning online. Thanks especially goes to those who made this event possible, including Brother Munir. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It means a lot to us. Brother Qadirjan, Sister Nurbia, and those who helped with the logistics and everything. And without you guys' help, this wouldn't have been possible. And also I'd like to especially thank and express my gratitude for my wife, Minawar, and my kids for their continued support. I'd really appreciate that. Also, special thanks for Uyghur Sama restaurant for preparing delicious food. I hope all of you enjoyed, and I hope all of you visit again. And having said that, I'd like to remind myself first and foremost, and all of you here today, that we thank Allah for this event. And before I start, just wanted to share a little bit about me. My name is Kasim Tuman. I'm a husband and father of 2 wonderful children. I've been living in the Bay Area for almost 20 years since I migrated to US from East Turkestan, my mother country invaded by Chinese communists since 1949. I'm an engineer by training and an Uyghur activist by heart for life. It is my great honor today to sit in front of you, to share with you that I care greatly Uyghurs' current trials and tribulations. I'm going to talk briefly about Uyghur history categorized by pre and post Chinese communist invasion. Then I'll talk about Uyghurs' cultural heritage, ethnic origin, and political situation. Then I will cover current situations and what we can do to help moving forward. Then I hope to have some time for Q&A session to share more. But before I start, I need to make a couple of points very clear so as not to give a wrong expectation or information. First, as I have stated above, I'm not an academic Uyghur scholar. Secondly, I have tried my best to present what I have learned, experienced, as they actually are, following our Prophet ﷺ's great prayer and tradition. Lastly, all mistakes that I might have made or may make is solely mine, and I ask Allah's forgiveness and honored guest understanding. I'm going to start a little bit of a history. This might sound pretty, in a sense, I might throw out a lot of terminology and names and hard to remember, but I tried my best to make it such that it is easier to digest. Uyghurs, as it's pronounced in many different ways, some in the West, they pronounce it Uyghur with gi, but in our own native language, Uyghur, we pronounce it Uyghur with deep guttural sound, Uyghur. Uyghurs, with its over 4,000 years of history, some claims over 7,000 years. That is controversial around that. And have been recorded in ancient scriptures by Persian literature, namely Abul Qasim Tusi's Shahnameh. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And some earlier Chinese sources, among which one of them is most notably the great historical records by Sima Qian, who is the great historian during China's Han Dynasty. In his book, Uyghurs, beloved Uyghur historian Turgun Almas is one of our historians who wrote very comprehensive history about Uyghurs. He stated that Uyghurs as an entity originated from the tribe of 10 Uyghurs and toddlers Uyghurs, 9 Uyghurs, living in vast Central Asian steppe. Uyghurs was known as many different names throughout history, as Oghuz, Hun, not too confused with the Han, but it's Hun. If you guys remember the name Attila, it might ring the bell. And Tilla and Gocha, just to name a few. So Uyghur's name has been known in different historical period of time. It appeared in a historical context as a different names, a different title. Early historical record states that the Han Empire stretched from Chinese nation state, which is the nation state wall, which is the current China Great Wall. At that time, those walls are separated. It's not unified wall. It is just by different kind of nation states. And the Han Empire stretched from that, from the east and to the Roman Empire to the west. After the Han Empire broken into, collapsed into east and west, different section, the West Huns went to Europe, and what now was known to be the ancestors of the people mainly living in Hungary, Bulgaria, or some part of Germany. The East Han, later known by the name of one of the strong tribes as Tur. Tur is a name that is original of the current Turkic people. They went on to establish Kök-Turk, which means Blue Turk Empire, which faced similar fate like a previous empire, Han Empire. They split into two, and then from there, at that point of time, Uyghurs as one of the tribe in the Kök-Turk Empire, they established Uyghurs King Empire from 740 to 840 AD, which was the first known recorded in history, the name Uyghur that we currently use today. And then, as in history goes, about 100 years of empire collapsed, and the Uyghurs, along with the Turkic-speaking population in that area, went on to establish different kingdoms, as we call it, Khanates. Among them, the Eduklut Turfan Khanate, Kansu Uyghur Kingdom, Karahan Kingdom, Saidiya Kingdoms, and the first Turkic Kingdom, which is the Karahan Kingdom that was established by Uyghurs at that time, was the first Uyghur Turkic Kingdom converted to Islam in around the 11th century. And then after Mongols' invasion, the great invasion of Genghis Khan, part of Uyghurs never surrendered. Part of them became the subjects of Genghis Khan. They didn't fight. Instead of brutal fighting, they welcomed them. The other part that fought and never surrenders, they went on to establish Seljuk Empire, which is the origin of Ottomans, which is the origin of modern-day Turkey. And those who remained helped Mongols establish the kingdom and its government by becoming the counselor generals, government officials. And the Uyghur language at that time was used as the official language of Genghis Khan. So if you look at it today, they still use, not Uyghur language, I'm sorry, it's Uyghur alphabet. So the Uyghur alphabet is currently still used by Mongols as of today. And as we all know, the Qing dynasty, after established by Manchus, in which during that time Manchus and Mongols assimilated into Chinese society. And after the collapse of Mongol kingdom, various warlords ruled Uyghurs. That includes the locals and foreign, and that is the period of time. I'm sure all of you heard about Great Silk Road stretching from China all the way to Rome. Kashgar is one of the major center of East Turkestan, was one of the center of trade, learning, commerce. After the Mongol invasion, that route, the Silk Road, has been sabotaged and become irrelevant once that flow of goods and ideas stopped, people on that area their culture started to collapse. And however, since then, Uyghurs have never lost their hope for their independence. Up until in 1933 and 1944 respectively, they have established republics twice. After the Second World War, East Turkestan's fate was decided by world superpowers at that time, namely the defunct Soviet Union, England, United States, and China during the Yalta Conference. And then in 1949, it is named as so-called Xinjiang, which you hear a lot, which literally translated into new territory and became a province of Chinese communists. I went through huge, like thousands year period of time in a very short introduction, but the main takeaway that I'd like you to keep in your head is it's been a vibrant, it's been a great nation embroiled in the historical development along the Silk Route by different kind of superpowers that came and gone along the way. And after 1949, Uyghurs found themselves being embroiled in the ups and downs of Chinese communist struggles. You guys all heard about Mao's Big Leap Forward, Cultural Revolution, and all of the chaos pursued after the communists took over. However, Uyghurs have never stopped their aspiration to restore their independence, their aspiration to establish their own country to rule themselves. As it was indicated, like in the movement in the 80s, in the movement in the 60s and 80s and 90s, up until as of today. It was told by 1949 in China there's about 56 nationalities. But if you look at it today, the only two nationalities that I can tell you, or you can see that is actually left and still keeping the culture and hanging on to it, is Uyghurs in the east and Tibetans in the southeast. That's pretty much a very short history of Uyghur people. And after I end this talk, I'll be happy to talk to you, answer your questions if you have any among those topics that is covered. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about Uyghur's culture, religion, and language. Uyghur belongs to a Turkic language family and believed to be the foundation of Turkish currently spoken in Turkey. And it has been influenced by Persian and Arabic historically, starting from 9th century, during which Islam started to take roots among Central Asian people, including Uyghurs. Living in the hub of Silk Road, stretched from China to Rome, Uyghurs enjoyed medieval enlightenment through their great minds such as Omar Khayyam, Mahmud Qashqari, Yusuf Khasajib, from 9th to 11th century, late 11th century. By the end of 12th century, Uyghurs became predominantly Muslim, following the teachings of Imam al-Ghazali, who were a citizen of Seljuk Empire we mentioned above. Those who are interested to find out extensively about this period of time, which I categorize as one of the, like if European had their own Renaissance, that is a Renaissance that we had in Central Asia. And that period of time is as great, as wonderful, as important as what the European characterized their own Renaissance. And if you look at the Islamic literature, a lot of people, including Al-Ghazali, Imam Al-Ghazali, I'm going to remember in a bit. At that time, I would recommend there's a book that's written by a scholar. It's titled Lost Enlightenment of Central Asia's Golden Age from Arab Conquest to Tamerlane. That is by Frederick Starr, came out in 2015 by the Princeton University Press. That is the book that covers this extensively, do a really great job telling you a lot more about it. And Uyghur poets like philosopher Elisher Nawai brought us numerous poems, most of which incorporated as the lyrics of 12 Muqam, which is the Muqam means Uyghur symphonic music recognized by the UN as the intangible heritage of humanity. And the Diwani Lughat Turk by Mahmud al-Kashgari laid the foundation of various Turkish language dialects. So anyone who studies Turkish languages of various dialects, they start from this book. And also, which is The Wisdom to Happiness by Yusuf Khas Ajib, was highly regarded as a go-to source, not only the personal individual happiness, but the happiness of a nation, how to govern a nation, how to be a just nation. And more recent scholars, well known among Islamic and Turkish scholars across the region are, I'm going to name it from earliest in the recent history, which is Sabit Damullah and Mehmetuli Tevfik, Abdul Khalid Uyghur, Lutfullah Mutallib, Turgun Almas, Abdurrahim Mutkur, and Muhammad Saleh, who, by the way, who translated Quran to Uyghur, the first person to translate Quran from Arabic to Uyghur, and who passed away about a year ago in Chinese prison due to torture. And last but not the least, Mrs. Rabia Qadir, an extraordinary woman, mother of 12, was the wealthiest woman in China at one point in time. She was jailed and later was released due to US pressure. The crime that Chinese communists accused her of is simply taking a publicly published newspaper when she's meeting with the US delegation of Congress. And she's free now, she's in DC, and she has a foundation, and she fights every day to make Uyghurs' voice heard in the world. And current situation. Let me just start saying that this is one of the most difficult times. I would say this is the most difficult times in history, in my personal opinion, which is ironically coincides with one of the strongest time ever in the history of China. Uyghurs are all on all the major news outlets today, and I'm not going to repeat what they have already covered. It is pretty extensively covered. Instead, I'd like to focus just a few points that I'm a direct or indirect witness, as many Uyghurs around the world, and things that I learned as recently as a couple of days ago from Uyghurs and non-Uyghurs who recently visited East Turkestan. Point one, most Uyghurs abroad who have families in China do not know whereabouts of their loved ones. I personally have not been able to contact my family for some time. Our need to know the unknown, let alone the unknown of those we love, is our fundamental rights. And I don't think that anyone has the right to take that away. Point two, you do not see Uyghurs in and around town that is predominantly populated by them previously. This is what I heard from a multiple witness who have been here, who have been in East Turkestan as recently as a few months ago. And we all know, based on the news, everything we're hearing, we all know where they have been, where they went. The concentration camps, which is one of the worst calamity that I know of in the 21st century, Nazi-style concentration camps that they opened up. They're all there. Number three, mosques are empty and doors are closed. An eyewitness visited Kashgar, Kashgar's 8-car mosque. This is one of the oldest mosques which is a center of Islamic studies and learnings, and it is closed and it's empty. Uyghurs are not allowed to practice Islam. And those who got caught praying, fasting, will be jailed without any due process. Think about it for a minute. Point number 4. Uyghurs are systematically discriminated against their own land. Discriminated against in their own land. Multiple people that I have talked to confirm this. Chinese communists give score to everyone. Everyone has a score in China. But this is not to be confused with the credit score in the United States. That score, what I'm about to tell you, might surprise you. For example, 100 points being the full point, you lose 10 points for being just Uyghur, period. If you're Uyghur, you lose 10 points. You lose 10 points for being suspected as religious. Not just being religious, but being suspected as religious. And 10 points for speaking Uyghurs or Islamic greetings at school, at work. 10 points for having a friend or relative abroad. How many points my relatives and friends have lost? No idea. And so on and so forth. The bottom line is 10 points for everything, each and everything the government do not approve of and does not like. So once you get to below 60, your world disappears. And I'm not making this up. And this is known fact. I'm here today forever thankful for MCC for organizing this and sharing the story. But one point I'd like to stress enough is this is a time that I'm not here to come and whine or being a, playing a mentality of victim. No, I'm here because all of those things that are happening to Uyghurs, and I really do not want to see to happen to anyone. And if we allow this to happen, I know it will happen to some of you, if not all of you, who are here today. I can tell you the experience once I went to a church to share my story, like I did today. At the end of my presentation, a priest came to me and told me, I pretty much said what I have covered today, more or less the same. But the priest came to me that, oh son, you have a hatred in your heart against the Chinese communists. I pray for you. And I told him, thank you, Father, but my grandson, your grandson, when they faced a situation like we face today, now, would you be preaching to them the same thing that I preached to me? So I just would like to emphasize that this situation in my homeland is pretty dire. And everyone knows China is getting a lot stronger. But there's always a hope. As it said in Quran, that Allah, one of the ayah, I don't remember, said, we will rotate the human society like a wheel. We were on the top before, and some of you, and many of you have on the top before. Maybe we're in the bottom. I don't think it's going to get any worse than this. But I'm forever hopeful that we will be up the top. We will be, and because that's what Allah promised. However, as any human, as a Muslim sister and brothers, this is a time for us to spread, to share, and do whatever we can to at least help one person to escape from Chinese persecution. And that would be a victory for me, as I have been doing. And with that, there are a lot of things that we can do to help. I printed out a QR code that has a couple of links that you can actually take immediate action. There's one, a Uyghur Freedom Act that's introduced by Senator Marco Rubio, is currently in motion. So the first thing you can do is just call your local representative and tell them to support the bill. And also please support Ms. Rabia Qadir. She has a foundation. I have a link in there. All you need is a QR code. You can either just scan it or just take a picture. You can get there. It has our contact information as well. And third, please support us. Not that, you don't need to do much. All you need is share with friends. Like Brother Munir did, invite us. Come to our restaurants or have our gatherings. Contact with us. We'll be more than happy to share. And we hope that that would make it a lot easier for us Uyghurs abroad, because we live every day in constant fear of unknown, which is one of the greatest fear of all. And I thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer if you have enough time. If not, I'll be around talking. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for that testimony and that beautiful reflection. So we have 25 minutes for Q&A before we have Isha, inshallah. So we'll just do 2 questions for the sisters, 2 from the brother. We'll kind of go back and forth, inshallah, here. So I'll hand the mic over to the sister side, and we'll do 2, and then I'll get the mic back. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
I
I recognize that it's very hard to boycott China because of the large amount of what we buy that comes from China. But is anybody trying to organize that?
The good question. Actually, honestly speaking, we have tried to do this our own, first and foremost, just boycotting, buying things that made in China. And I had to, honest with you, I had to tell you that it's not easy. It's extremely difficult, but whenever we can, we try. I remember my 2 kids are here. I remember a story when they were a little kid. I told them we're not going to buy anything made of China, but most of the toy, 100% of them, are made in China. One day they're in Target, they run around and came to me. I remember my daughter. She said, couldn't find it. And there's a book, so we had to buy a book. So the point is, we can do so much as an individual, but to your question, I have not seen anyone who have organized. There are some groups, however, it's not that organized, especially in these days where, goods are so cheap and it's so replaceable. And I hope that maybe with more people being aware and keep, as long as if we start doing ourselves and then organize around the idea to help become big, it might become a sort of a movement, but I don't see that this is happening anytime soon. But one thing I can say though, that it is more of an individual, it's not more of an individual buying power, but it's more of a profit margin of the various company that drives this kind of thing. So hopefully now China becoming a lot more expensive to do business with. So companies are moving to some inexpensive places. And hope that answers your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
My question was along the same lines about organizing. Aside from contacting local representatives, is there anything else that you have in mind in terms of organizing politically, locally?
Locally, I have always wanted to establish a local center for Uyghurs. This has been one of my, after I came to US, I really realized that we need a place of our own, even though we are a big part of bigger Muslim community, but we still need a place of our own so that we can host events and even more things like this, like Uyghur schools. And this message provided a space for us for Uyghur language, which is very teaching Uyghur language to our kids. So, but to your question, I think I'd like to see the possibility of locals supporting us of this endeavor. Somehow, we will be soon. Our brother Taderjan is working on establishing an organization, non-for-profit, so that we can, advertise more and talk more about it, and so that we can establish a center of some sort. And that will probably unify a lot more efforts that going on sporadically.
Thank you. We'll move to the brother side. I just want to mention that this is being live streamed and recorded. So on the link in the description, there'll be links to the resources that brother has shared with us. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So, can you please educate us about the origins of the current problems the Uyghurs are facing? This concentration camp, how long ago did it start, and what triggered it? I'm guessing that initially they were just ordinary citizens of China like everybody else. So what really caused this strong element?
Very good question. It has been happening since 1949. The problem is, it is so isolated place and so controlled place. There's no way to outside to know about it. Now they're knowing it because it's so much connected world. Somehow things are leaking out. All the news, either in the main media that you have seen or social networks you have seen, are leaked news by individuals who have secretly recorded. And China never allows open investigation. They don't allow that, period. To your question, why this is happening? My answer is the land we live. Let me tell you one statistics. 1949, their paper, official government paper, stated the Han Chinese population in East Turkestan as 4%. If you look at the 2008 white paper of Chinese government, they say the Han Chinese population there is about 48%. So within about half a century of time, they have moved so much population in. That is one side of it. The other side of it is, since the locals there feel threatened, not only in terms of their way of living and culture, but for their everyday life. Right now, institutionally, they are favoring Han over Uyghurs. And they're forcing Uyghurs to give up their religion, their culture, their language, to act and think, speak exactly like Chinese. That is what they are doing to Uyghurs, that what they have done to Mongols, the Inner Mongolia, about 40 or 50 years ago. If you go to Inner Mongolia now, they don't speak their own language. They all become Chinese. They speak Chinese, they go to Chinese school, and that's what they are trying to enforce. However, Uyghurs, since we've been living alongside Chinese, how long they claim their history is, we've been living them as neighbors, so we know we have our own foundational cultures and we're clinging to it, and they wanted to destroy that.
Assalamu alaikum.
Well,
Thank you very much, Jazakallah, for the presentation. Excuse me. I do have a question, kind of along the same lines of the sister, of what can we do, but also a comment that we are end of January now, 3 months before Ramadan. We have 3 solid months still. Winter is kind of passing us. We're looking at spring here, and we live in the Bay Area. And mashallah, most of us are in IT, access to social media and everything. Why not start the education process now to our fellow mainstream Americans now, and then perhaps organize a rally either in San Jose or San Francisco, get all the media out, get all the delegates out and so forth, because mashallah we have access to all of them, congressmen, all the way down to like school board and hospital board. We have friends there. Myself, I'm part of Muslim Democratic and Friends. So why not do that? So it's just one, blitz out there, and then this way it probably will jitter the Chinese government also that, it's not just no longer one or two representatives, a matter of just a bill in the House, but it's also the mainstream Americans are now getting educated what's going on. Kind of like what we do for Palestine, Syria, and Iraq. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is a great suggestion. I'm all for it. I'm open, available anytime. Actually, this is more of to my own reflection. What we have been doing in the past, in the last 20 years or so, is kind of a very sporadic effort, not very organized well. And now it is time. And I just heard from Senator Ramon Khutbah from Hatem, which I say all the time, which I apply to myself all the time, that we cannot do the same thing and expecting the different results. And we gotta have to do something. We gotta do it very differently than we would be doing in the past. Thank you very much. Please contact with me and I'll be happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay. I'll hand the mic over to the sister.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
I was wondering a couple of things. You mentioned the point system, and I was wondering, does that apply to everyone in China or just like single populations? And also, do common Chinese people know about this issue? And if they don't, do you think that if they did, that anything would change, or is the government just too strong and too stubborn to kind of hear their people?
Very good question. A white lady that lives in San Ramon recently came visited my house, and that's what she told me. She stayed in my hometown for 4 years, and that's what she saw. That's what she heard. And they were using it for Uyghurs. But I wouldn't rule it out that they use it for everyone in China. Because, like you said, even if Chinese know that system, that Uyghurs will be taken out 10 points, if you put a group of people under the kind of circumstances where they've been educated starting from the early childhood education to brainwash their mind that Uyghurs is a backward and enemy of the nation, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of Chinese will just be happily accept the fact that when you Uyghur, take 10 points away. I'm glad that they were doing that. So that kind of mentality. So I think, time is limited. I would be happy to tell you my experience. I spent 30 years of my life in China, and I've lived in one dorm with a lot of Chinese people at my university. And I understand. I have been through all of that. And no matter how hard I try to change their mindset, it has not been easy. It has not been easy because that is done when they were very little. And it's hard to change when you already have established the mindset.
I just wanted to know, what is the danger for people who are here, because there's a lot of interest in organizing, but does that put you guys in danger or under suspicion or whatever? And then also, how do people leave? Are refugees accepted? How does that work?
It is always not easy. Let's not say the people, the Uyghurs in East Turkestan, they're just living. The victory for them, as far as I'm concerned, is just survive, just be alive. That is a victory. But for people outside, what I would say is they live in a situation where they've been cut off from their family. And just living with this, I wouldn't say the last 4 years, any Uyghurs who are around 40 or something age, I can definitely say they're living in a post-traumatic stress disorder kind of mentality, because they have families, they have kids, they have parents there. and most of them do not know what's going on. And they can reach wherever you are if they wanted to. Even in the Bay Area, I hear stories of people getting phone calls, threats of cooperating with the Chinese government, working for them, spying on the Uyghurs, what they're doing. And their reach is everywhere. But one thing I know that as China gets stronger, they will actually do a lot more bold things. And if the people have not waken up before, governments or individuals alike will definitely wake up to Chinese bold moves. I hope that we can do something about it together. I hope that answers your question.
Hello. So I'm from Turkey, and as a Turkish citizen, I'm ashamed of my country is kind of silent on this issue because of the economic relationship with China. So I don't really support giving up the idea of independence for Uyghur people because it's a it's a region by itself, independent. But just to give a way for other countries to support your cause. Is there a campaign just to target the current officer ruling the Eastern Turkestan? Because what I understand, the same guy used to manage the Tibet,
yes,
and the same tactics he applied there, and maybe it will give a chance to Muslim countries like Pakistan, Turkey, who has to, keep good relationship with China because economics. At least we can target the mayor of Turkestan so they can raise some voice because it's shameful. In Turkish media, I don't hear anything, and I know why. And I suggest everybody here to follow the Uyghur websites on Facebook pages, YouTube, and comment on it because I just followed 2 weeks. Every day I was depressed. What is going on? You cannot name your kid as a Muslim. You cannot go to mosque. You cannot fast. You are forced to eat pork just to prove that you are not Muslim or religious. And it's the communist mentality. You need to crack eggs to make an omelet. So all the Chinese people are kind of, hey, just for survival, it's okay to those people to suffer, because it's for a bigger cause. So my question is there a campaign to target the mayor itself, not the whole country, so we can participate?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, there are in European Parliament. There are targeted legislature in different European sections of European Parliament that already brought those. The Secretary of Xinjiang Province to justice. They have already said that whenever he travels outside, they're going to be arrested. There's arrest warrant even. The bill that I mentioned, the Marco Rubio, specifically talks about that and names few individuals who are directly involved, who are directly doing, especially as related to concentration camps. And on top of the point that you raised, we're Muslim, we're Uyghurs, we're Turk, but our struggle so far has always been, before we complain that others not helping us, or why not Turkey, why not Pakistan, why not India, Uyghurs have always looked inside first. That's how we came. That's how we followed Imam al-Ghazali's teaching. That's how we said, what can we do first? So that they know us and they help. That's what we're doing today.
I just want to add, brother asked the campaign. Yeah, the bill is still they're trying to pass a bill the brother talked about. So as a mass Muslims, if we can actually contact local representatives and the house of our local congressmen, and then bring this issue about. I think this is going to help. If they can voice their concern, then help to pass this bill. I think this is the cause, I guess, what we can do as a citizen here. So we can contact our local representatives, local congressmen or congresswomen, and then, sorry?
It is a Senate bill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you just scan this, it will directly take you to the link, so you can learn more about it, sign it, and.
Assalamu alaikum. What is the population of the Uyghurs in China or in Eastern Turkey?
Official Chinese document said 8 million. However, you can easily double it. Easily. 16 million, I would say, without even thinking about it. But if you ask me as a personal opinion, I would say over 20 million.
So I guess, along the same lines of, the political pressure, and also, there has to be economic pressure on the Chinese government, ultimately, and it's going to be a long process. However, do you see that, does the Chinese government, will they give in to outside pressure?
Here's what I hear all the time. China is very strong, economically very strong. They don't listen much, they don't hear. But I can tell you, brothers and sisters, I can tell you one thing. Yes, China is strong. But remember, every strong has a weakness. But China's weakness is very different from the United States' weakness. China's weakness, from my personal opinion, they had built an empire on a very weak basis. And that weakness can collapse at any time, any minute. Not like in the United States. They start with a strong basis, and they keep changing, they keep improving, which is the things have done a little differently from that perspective. But having lived in China, I can tell you, only people outside China are more confident and scary of China than the people living in China, because they know. The people living in China, or people who have been to China, they know how weak foundation that they have. The only strong, if you tell me the strength that they have, it's not the strength of the will of the people. It is the strength of the brutality of the police state. That's the strength that they have. But we have all seen that that kind of strength can go to a limit and it collapses. It collapses. So I wouldn't say, not that because they're strong, stop. I would say just because they're strong, do more. Do more. Because you will see their weakness. You will see it. And eventually they will be exposed.
So, just have one question, and I think we'll just take this. We'll just probably end up with this one. Actually, I'll let Mr. Chloe do it, and we'll end with this question. This last question.
I'm just wondering if there's any way to work together with Chinese democracy activists, whether there's some way to pool resources that way.
A very good question. We have worked with them in the past, and we continue to work with them anytime. Our experience has been always been off and off. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. One of the things that I realized, even the Chinese democracy of the Chinese people, their agenda changes according to what China's current situation policies are. So for them, we are not the main